Hey friends, can you believe it? We're getting near the end of the course. And like each of the wellness practices, I love them more and more. I love eating for health, joyful movement, mindfulness, healing relationships. And now here we are at service and justice. So we're really going up the scale from personal practice with food, movement, and mindfulness to relational practice with getting along with other people and then offering service and standing for justice. So very important, very powerful work that we're doing here. So let's see if I can get my slide to progress. Service is embodied spirituality. I think that's very important because we can be spiritual. We are spiritual beings living a human existence. So it's not that we have to try to be spiritual. We have to remember our connection to source and spirit. And we show up in the world with an intention to create goodness and restoration and healing. So that's part of the service we do. We can listen to the calling of our soul. We all have a soul. It's outside of the body, but it's part of our essence. It's our spiritual component. And the soul directs us on how and where to serve. We all have a purpose for being here. And it's not just for our own lives, but it's to help others and to bring goodness into the world and bring truth and justice into the world and to really carry the light. So we can offer support to those in need who want to regain resilience, vitality, and joy. So the outcome of integrative wellness is to enhance vitality, resilience, joy, balance, and to create community. So if you wonder, like, why am I here? This is really why we're here, all of us, is to bring in a better life for ourselves, our loved ones, and the people we don't know, but who we may influence through our intention and our love. No act of kindness goes unfelt by the whole. So that's very important. Having peace in our hearts, peace in our bodies, peace in our mind, and enhancing peace around us and showing kindness to others and sending out good thoughts and good energy is part of service. Collaborative service gives us hope, doing things together. It's really important. We feel stronger together, connected together, reinforced together, validated by being with one another, having healing relationships, being mindful, and just showing up. Collaborative service gives us hope, collective guidance, and vitality. So not only is there personal guidance, but many of us are thinking the same things. We're being guided to be of service to those around us, people with less than we have. There's some people who have a lot and some people have very little. But those people who have a little may have a lot of value that will come out with our support. So that's how we show up and be of service. Service is perhaps the greatest wellness practice. When people serve, it reduces mortality by 22 to 44%. That's amazing. So people who volunteer live longer. People who volunteer have 29% lower risk of high blood pressure. There's no drug that can guarantee that. 17% lower risk of inflammation, and people spend 38% fewer nights in the hospital. So for me, service is the antidote to being self-absorbed, to being narcissistic, to being depressed. That, I don't just live for myself. And in helping others, I actually awaken neurochemicals that make me feel good and enable me to live longer and better. And that's one of the secrets of my longevity and my good health. How many times have you heard how bad stress is for your health? But how do we reduce our stress? Well, Serving others is a great way to do it. It's a great coping skill. And it's one that is easy to do, just smiling at people, just saying hello, looking people in the eye, having good thoughts, saying prayers is a wonderful form of service. Our brains have a part called the amygdala, which is the fight or flight center. When we're stressed, the amygdala is triggered. We feel threatened and angry, or we try to escape for what we perceive as a threat. Serving, helping others, showing up for others, being with others helps us calm down. It's wonderful. So think of the ways that people have served you, because that's the other part of not being well, is we need to accept service, to receive kindness, to receive support, receive love. And this is really a spiritual practice, both giving and receiving. It's a communication, 2-3-way communication. And the third way, there's you and me and there's spirit. And we're together with good openness and awareness and gratitude. We connect with spirit. And it can be religious or it can be non-religious. It's just being alive and being sitting and standing and being in our spiritual place. Facilitating transformation, whether through deeds or words, the merit of our every contribution to social well-being, the world around us, lies in our resolute commitment to discover that precious point of unity. That's interesting. Where contrasting perspectives, differences, even conflict, overlap, and around which contending people can coalesce. This is the path to peace. People have different beliefs and different backgrounds and different attitudes, but they agree to be together, to look for common good, to lay the swords down, and to find ways to promote life and to support healing. Very important that we're here to facilitate personal and social transformation. And that's what engaged spirituality, engaged wellness can do for us and for those around us. In community, we find self-identity. I think that's very important. This is a community of service, a community of practice, a community of positivity. It's wellness, it's lived wellness. So we can identify with that. Yeah, I'm part of the Bauman Wellness community, and you can be part of many communities. But we see ourselves in looking in the mirror and seeing good people around us and good people smiling back at us. So this is all part of the wellness practice of service. So I will leave you with this portion by saying namaste. The light in me recognizes the light in you. And even if the lampshade in the lamp is a little bit broken and tarnished, which it is as we get older and beat up, we still are vessels for the light. And it's the light that creates the life in the world. So I think that's really important. And we've seen people who are sick who can be incredible channels of the light. They just shine. They just exude love and kindness and service, and just being with them is quite a blessing. So let's work on our wellness practice of service. I'm going to pass this over to Shalonda now. These are the agreements that she organized and shared with us last year. We'll let her take it from here, and you can introduce yourself if you would, Shalonda.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Shalonda Ingram. I am a human being focused on evolving the culture during my lifetime. I am an indigenous descendant to what is called North America. Now we call it Turtle Island. And I am very fortunate to learn how to heal myself from state-sanctioned violence. In the United States, there's a lot of oppression that goes on that is capitalistic in its nature, and groups are chosen to experience that oppression. And my identities center across a number of those spaces. And it's very powerful to become aware of that, and also to deal with what that is, to have your personhood accosted, right, by state-sanctioned violence. And these are the practices that I hold and that I walk through the world with at all times. And I do my best to live from here, no matter what the state sanction is, as it relates to who I am and my presence on the planet this lifetime. So these agreements help me move through space, and they're sort of how I maintain my own personal social justice in my own body and my own experience and movement through the world. Be present. And that just looks like being in the moment, whatever that moment is. That looks like sometimes denying power to the past, right? And to have dealt with some potential traumas and harms, etc., so that one can even experience now time or present time. One person speaking at a time. That includes being in a group, but that also includes your inside voices, right? Most people think of this as an external context. We have many influences and voices or personas going on, and developing relationships with those parts of ourselves can really facilitate justice in our own experiences of ourselves and other people. Take space, make space. That may look like the simplicity of being introverted or extroverted, right? It may look like, where do you put your things when you come into a community? Do you take your shoes off if you see all the shoes at the door, etc.? It's about paying attention and being aware of how your existence is in a physical space, right? And what you bring to a space, whether that's positive, negative, etc. Give freely of your experience. An hour being a critical term there. When we speak from our own vulnerability, it invites other people to do a similar thing. Confidentiality. This is critical, both for personal growth and for communal engagement. We want to avoid developing practices of gossip and harm through being a bit of a vault for each other, being an altar for each other, so that when people share vulnerably, it's safe to do that, right? And really ask, am I a safe person to share with? And maybe say, hey, I wouldn't prefer that you share these things with me if you're not able to maintain confidentiality. Some people are from traditions of gossip. We are all teachers and students. What does that mean? It really means to be in a flexible, agile state, right? So that you may lead and follow with the same selflessness, and that you may develop the ability to decentralize yourself and practice that with others. It's like capoeira, it's very organic, very fluid, right? And there's a lot of freedom in that. Safe space and brave space. Those are different parts of a continuum, right? And this is more about acknowledging that we cannot keep each other safe. We may not be able to maintain safety within our own conversation with ourselves at times. We may have negative speak, right? So we want to look at this as a place of pushing around our own edges and also maintaining safety, and acknowledging that what safety is for me may not be a shared experience for anyone else. And how do we leverage our brilliance as human beings to develop environments that work for more people than ourselves or our immediate family or people that we share agreement with? We want to be recognizing and being empathetic with how this, whatever this is, impacts, right? And that's a very wide statement. It's a matter of saying, when I am facilitating justice for someone, what does that need to look like? It can't be that my version of justice may be an injustice to you, right? And how do we develop ourselves to evolve our interest to include the impact of another? It's empathy. And then this piece around expectations, right? We don't want to expect the marginalized people, whoever they are, right, to do the work of educating, right? And again, very wide open sentiment so that we can fill in those blanks culturally in terms of what that means in the context that we may find ourselves in. So these agreements are great. They're fine so long as you're not hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, which we tend to operate on a continuum of in our culture in the US. But there's a sweet spot, right? Like comfort is valued in some cultures, and discomfort or rigor is seen as problematic or troublesome, right? And so it's about finding that space for yourself where you're both comfortable and safe, and also you're evolving yourself or evolving your community, and being available for what it is to grow and evolve, right? And not having that be specific to an institutional growth. This may occur in an interaction with a stranger or with family members. You may shift how you operate. And so all of those words that have been shared are coming from my perspective, right? And how I move through the world, how I navigate the injustices and privileges or perceived privileges that I experience. These are more social terms, right? A bit more academic. And these terms were developed in partnership with some other folks. But just to name this context of being a Jedi or being a justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion mindset or space, there's always Baby Yoda, right? Like there's some people are aware of like that whole thing. And, you can like do the Baby Yoda thing. Everyone loves Baby Yoda. So like, how can you start to engage yourself in your own justice practices with that type of affinity for yourself and for your community? Because we're going to mess up. And no one ever gets upset with, Baby Yoda. We understand we're all becoming these Jedis, right? And so being on a quest of it, not expecting to be perfect, not expecting not to offend each other, is a very positive orientation. So when I say justice, what I mean is dismantling barriers to resources and opportunities in society so that all individuals and communities can live a full and dignified life. When I say equity, what I mean is allocating resources to ensure, not like maybe, but ensure everyone has access to the same opportunities. Equity recognizes that disadvantages and barriers and isms exist. We're not overlooking anything. We're not pretending, right? We're making sure that we're paying attention. Diversity. When I say diversity, what I mean is all the differences between us based on which we experience advantages or encounter barriers to opportunities, whether that's race, class, age, isms, choose the ism. And sometimes those dynamics include upbringing, location, or even accents, right? There's a lot that goes on inside of that one word, diversity. Inclusion. When I say inclusion, what I mean is fostering a sense of belonging and fostering it. It may not exist, like you may have to create it, right? The sense of belonging by centering, valuing, and amplifying voices, perspectives, and styles of those who experience more barriers based on those identities, right? And we list style because that's pretty important. Because sometimes people just have a different style than you. It doesn't mean they're inefficient or they just may not have a Google Calendar, right? But they have another method for how they conduct their business. All right. So any feedback, questions, curiosities around anything that's been shared so far?
There was a comment in the chat from Cheryl. Could you explain Baby Yoda? She fell asleep during Star Wars.
Oh, fair. So ultimately, Baby Yoda is this character that's on a quest, right? And Baby Yoda's like ancient. And by Baby Yoda, I mean it's like 100 years old. So there's this sort of wise character that socially has been accepted as a cute sage that we could relate to as a facilitator of outcomes, right? You kind of see him sometimes, not always, right? But when you need the moment to evolve, Baby Yoda is involved, right? And so this justice, equity, inclusion, diversity concept, it's more about embodying this and saying, you know, we're not perfect. We are on a quest, we're journeying together, and we're practicing these things, right? Doesn't mean there won't be stress or issues, but it's a light way to say we're on a quest, and that to expect for there not to be challenges and discord would be a type of ignorance, but it can also be fun, right? And it can be something that you do with a lot of dignity. Yeah. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. These are other versions of all the things that were shared, right? So that those of us who are visual can kind of have the words pop out at us. For those of us who may learn differently, this may assist. This is another way to make the same statements. And we'll have Christina share a little bit, and we'll get back to an exercise that combines our efforts. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shalana. That's amazing. And this is all really such a perfect segue from our lesson last week when we talked about Bauman Wellness practice number 4, healing relationships. And when I think about the kind of things that we talked about as far as like, what are the elements of that relationship that is healthy? What are the areas that don't seem as healthy? What are areas that maybe the relationship is at dis-ease? And in thinking about just sort of the collective dysfunction and disharmony that we see a lot in the world today, I think a lot of that really is attributed to this disease that we have in those individual relationships, that lack of healing that has occurred at the individual level and in our social relations with others, that on a larger collective level, then humanity as a whole is really suffering. I mean, we see that there's, I think, statistically, I think there's now 32 ongoing conflicts globally today. And when we kind of use the metaphor of like the human body as a metaphor for the earth, we recognize, okay, my body has several different parts. I have eyes, I have ears, I have a mouth, I have hands, feet, legs, and arms. And when one of those things gets injured, really my whole body is hurting. And I may not feel it everywhere, but the human organism is all connected. And when one part hurts, it hurts all of the other parts. So in our world, when one country is hurting or one group of people is marginalized, the whole collective is suffering from that. And there's healing that needs to be done, not just at that individual level, but then again, also at that collective level. And what's really powerful about bringing in the arts as a tool for social justice is that it really helps to raise awareness of what injustices are actually happening, where there are imbalances in our relationships that are affecting the collective whole. And it can really be a form of healing those relationships, strengthening, repair, and restoring relationships that then lead to this understanding that we can build community together through strengthening those relationships that exist within that community. And something else that the social justice arts can do, depending on how one approaches it, one approach you might see is a work of art or writing that someone has created that is a personal reflection of their lived experience. And we can connect with them and learn from them about what their feelings are, their thoughts are, their experiences are through that art. And then in other cases, we can actually create art that serves as a very clear call to action of like, here's the injustice that I'm seeing in the world. Here's what I'm asking others to do to be allies with me and join with me, and then healing these relationships and healing this world. So with that, I would love to ping it back to Shalanda, who's got an amazing activity utilizing many of the different art modalities that we've learned in class so far. So I'm really excited about this.
Thanks, Christina. And thanks, everybody, for taking this on. So a lot of what we do inside of leading communities and building platforms and serving in the ways that I understand this community who's gathered now to be is external, and we're supporting lots of people, and it's all going out that way, which is important and necessary. This exercise is about looking internally and seeing what is your personal justice dynamic right now. Like if you were, and you are, I assert, your own government, right? How are you treating yourself? Is your constituency happy? How's the water, right? Like what's going on with you? And let's take a look at that. And by journaling, we can leverage that term flexibly to say, oh, I'm going to do some doodling, or you might use some colors, right? Or you might draw something or make a quick slide deck if you're a digital artist. But the concept is to really look at what's going on with yourself and where your personal justice, what is your personal constitution? How is that going, right? And from that place is where we serve, no matter how it's going, whether or not we're eating lunch or forgetting to take care of ourselves, though that's the person who is serving. So we want to take a moment to go within and ask ourselves these questions, right? Or prompts, right? I am, that's one prompt. Spend some time on that. I want, fill in the blank. I need, I feel. Okay. This prompt is from a dear colleague of mine in the dance world. I produce a lot of dance. We ask ourselves these questions in order to make new dance. When we're in studio together with a bunch of bodies and we know that the new dance is in these bodies, we have to develop the trust with each other to find a place to start moving together, right? And so I'm inviting this process for us. Let's take a solid, 6 minutes to really go into this and see what comes up when you consider your personal justice and your own personal constitution with these prompts. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to let us know. Thanks, everybody.